Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Laces Out podcast. That's right, we're talking NFL football, we're talking playoff football. No guest this week, just me and Paul talking football. That's right, NFL football, but it's still football, I think. If you are one of our lovely subscribers, you're an amazing person and I want you to know that. If you're not quite one of our subscribers, you can change that right here and now. Click that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. It means the world to us and we will love you forever. Right, let's get going. Let's get talking some playoff football. Here we go. This is CookieCast, Laces Out.
Recording in progress.
There we go. The lady speaketh, and we shall listen. It is that time of the week. I was trying to remember what day it was for a second there, but it is in fact that time of the week where myself, my glamorous co-host Mr. Williams, get together and we discuss NFL football. Now, sometimes we do that with guests. But apparently, all of our potential guests were too exhausted from this week's games to even dial in to the podcast. And obviously, we'll be covering those games shortly because So it's going to be one of those because I always feel like as the season draws to a close, it's like, oh, we've got this game and this game to talk about, and then that's kind of it. We've got plenty of stats to be looking at. We've got, obviously, last week's games to go through. Any predictions and things like that to come up. Find out if Stu managed to hit a full boat again. And yeah, predict the 2 games this week. And that'll probably be it. Obviously there's more to it than that, but let's get started and let's see how it unfolds.
Absolutely. Obviously not to jump forward in time too much, but dare I hazard a guess that there probably won't be a podcast next week, as we certainly won't be predicting the Pro Bowl. So
now then, I am a lover of the Pro Bowl. That is categorically not true. If there is one thing in sports that I hate more than the Pro Bowl, I'd struggle to find it, and that includes tennis and cricket in that category. The Pro
Bowl's one of those ones where I've got a couple of different sort of groups of friends who like American football, and one of them was saying once where it's just got to a point where it's just not even worth watching because it's basically not even a glorified friendly, because it's not really sort of worth anything. So
it means
as a suggestion would be you need to put something on it. So if they still keep it in the NFC versus AFC format, you'd need to change it so that whichever conference wins the game gets to either have an extra roster space or gets to have an extra $1 million on the cap.
Yeah, they need to. They need to do something.
Just put something on it so that it's actually got some form of sort of credence to it, or something, just to make any sort of change to it to make it worthwhile watching.
Yeah, I fully agree. I remember 5 or 6 years ago being like, oh, we've got the Pro Bowl this week. I'm going to watch it. It's going to be great. All of this, and I think I got about 10 minutes in and was like, what is this? It's like the players aren't really playing. They aren't really giving it they're all or even half. It's like, what are we doing right now? About 15 minutes in, I'm like, is it okay to turn this off? Because this is a pointless waste of time. And then shortly after I was like, and we're done. And yeah, the year in, year out, we keep having it. Year in, year out, we have those players when they're mentioned that it's always so and so, 3-time Pro Bowler. It's like, and it's like, who cares?
They've said it before when people sort of like go on about like it's only around the NFL podcast. They say that people shouldn't look at the amount of times that a guy's been like voted to the Pro Bowl as a thing. They should look for what's called the All-Pro team.
Yeah,
because that's where they actually pick the best players of the positions across the board, rather than the Pro Bowl where they just basically pick either the best players and then they get injured, so a replacement is just brought in from whoever can still stand at the time.
Or can be bothered. It's like, oh, I'm injured, I can't play that game, I'm afraid. So, let's talk last week, shall we?
Can do.
I personally haven't quite recovered. I'm going to offer up some. I've decided. I made a decision. I was either going to go one way or the other. I am going to offer up some rather controversial opinions, and all opinions expressed on this podcast are my own. They are not the opinions of CookieCast as an organisation. They are actually my own opinions, and anything said by me on this podcast is what's going on in my tiny little brain. So getting that out of the way first, we can now move on to talk about just the absolute insanity from the weekend.
Well, that game we'll have to discuss last, because it was the last game of the weekend, so it makes sense to discuss last. But it was obviously, not to foreshadow too much, the game that had the most going on in it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say that. So we opened the weekend with the Cincinnati Bengals travelling to the number 1 ranked seed in the AFC, the Tennessee Titans. Of the 4 predictions that came in, we had 3 people pulling for the Bengals and 1 person pulling for the Titans. And it was the 3 that were happiest at the end of this, as the Bengals pulled off the upset in, I believe, a 16-13 win.
Indeed.
No, I've got that wrong. 19-16? 19-16, because I've got 35 points in total in the game, so that would make an awful lot more sense. It almost felt to me as if the Titans just never really turned up. Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions, not great. Derrick Henry just didn't look like he was ready. I think they'd rushed him back because obviously they were the number 1 seed and they were never going to get a better opportunity to,
There was, I think both what you and I said last week was kind of like mashed together. You were saying that there was that possibility that he was going to come back at like 85%, and was he going to be able to get up to speed? And in hindsight, the answer is no. I think what I said was, let's face it, all the Bengals had to do was focus on shutting down that run game. And unfortunately, for a team like the Titans, that's kind of them done. I was saying to the stats mistress while we were watching it, I was like, this feels like deja vu in a lot of ways. I'm pretty sure I remember, and I kind of want to go back. Pretty sure I remember saying on a podcast probably around this time last year about how when you build your entire team around one person, if that one person then gets stopped, that's your game over. And I got a lot of respect for players like Derrick Henry when they are such a huge dominant force in a game that, like I'd said last week, you put 3 or 4 people on that player just to make sure that run game never gets going. And it's that formula, isn't it? If you take out one thing, a good team, a great team, would have many other options to go to, and the Titans just don't have those options. They're like, our team is Derrick Henry. Okay, well, what if Derrick Henry's not working right? What if Derrick Henry's on the fritz, and it's that? Then we are screwed. Now, we keep coming back to it. I keep coming back to it. I love, and I want to say this now. I want to go on record saying this now. I've said it every week. I love Bengals football this season. The Bengals have been amazing this season. I want everybody to remember that when it comes to this week's predictions. It wasn't bang, 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 50 points aside, and one team just didn't quite get it done. It was a low-scoring game. Wasn't the only low-scoring game. And no matter how much I want to see those big scoring games, the theory is that when you reach this point in the season, the two teams that are facing off against each other should be so well matched that those scores should be relatively low. And that is evident through what we've seen. So yes, the Tennessee Titans did lose out to the Cincinnati Bengals. Congratulations to the Bengals, moving on to the next round. This will be the furthest they've got in. Did we say it was? Oh, what did you say? It was 32 years.
It will be. I think the last time they got this far was they maybe got to the Super Bowl in 1988 or 1989. But obviously, I don't want to step over the toes of the stats. But is there a stat in there about a certain drought, or it was a first time ever about the Cincinnati Bengals? Don't want to spoil the surprise.
The stats are very much focused. You've got some Bengals stats. Nothing necessarily. They're talking about where Joe Burrow was drafted.
Well, basically, the stat that's come out is the fact that in their entire history as an NFL franchise, that is the first time they've won a playoff game outside of Cincinnati. So, hell of a time to get it, and if they can recreate that next week at wherever they go, not to spoil anything, but we'll see. Then they can make it to another Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
But the second game of the week took us to Green Bay for the other number one seed, and it was the San Francisco 49ers travelling to Green Bay in what turned out to be snowy conditions towards the midpoint and later points of the game.
Snowing in Lambeau.
A clean sweep on the predictions here. We all had the Green Bay Packers advancing, and we were all incredibly foolish to be that behind Aaron Rodgers, given the fact that he had 3 previous attempts at beating him in the postseason and had lost every single time. So, obviously, we now know that if you have to get rid of the Green Bay Packers in the postseason in the NFL, just send in the San Francisco 49ers. Basically, seems to be the upshot of that. Yeah,
so
low scoring game, potentially understandable given the conditions, but 49ers stuck it with a last minute field goal, 13 to 10. Packers just never got going in this.
They really didn't. So in hindsight, it's one of those that you could have literally just gone with the stats for this and gone with They've never managed to get this done. So, if you went with the stats, you'd have correctly predicted this game, and that is the weirdest thing. You know, I was joking with you and winding you up by going, well, you know, Packers have to go out sometime. I didn't for a second believe it would be this week. I honestly thought, and again, no spoilers or anything, but I honestly thought they were going to get taken out by the Bucks.
We'll get to that.
So I've had a conversation this week in our mini league group conversation type thing, where I was saying I don't like this version of the San Francisco 49ers. So when it's this team that takes out the Green Bay Packers that have played the way that they've played. Now I will never tell you that the Packers will make it through the postseason. They can't get through the playoffs. There is some weird voodoo that's been put on them that says they will never get through the playoffs. It's I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain it, but and like I said earlier, I will be throwing out some controversial opinions, but I don't like this version of the 49ers. I think that's how do I put this subtly? I think that goes from the sort of top down. I don't like certain players on that team. I don't like the fact that that team has advanced. I don't like the fact that they've put themselves in a position now where they could potentially be 50% of this year's Super Bowl. And it's going to sound weird, but the whole situation makes me angry. It makes me angry with the Green Bay Packers. It makes me angry with the San Francisco 49ers. It makes me angry with the fact that we use this phrase a lot more in the football podcast, but they are going to shithouse their way into a Super Bowl. It's the fact that they've got that opportunity. Like I said, the Packers were supposed to beat them so that we didn't end up in the situation that we're in now. And then the Bucks could have beaten the Packers, and everything would have been right with the world, and that's not the case. And I am angry about it. But you've got to acknowledge that two teams who have made it to the playoffs, so have played well enough to make it to the playoffs, went up against each other. And one of those two teams came out victorious. Now, as you were saying, the Packers just did not get it going. But the 49ers didn't look great either. It's not like they were like a dominant force. They were very much like... It was a game of, did they win or did the Packers just lose?
I think it's one of those situations where if you look back at the two games, the 49ers have got there in spite of the quarterback play from Jimmy Garoppolo. I think combined over the two games, he's thrown at least 4 picks, maybe.
Yeah.
But he's not looked great. I think at one point including the third quarter, I think he was still in double figures for passing yards, and it's like, this is not good. That's the only thing that sort of makes me think that this might be as far as they go, because surely at some point your fortune and your luck
has to run out. Your luck has to run out, because that is a team that's been running on luck for a little too long now. So their luck has to run out. Something that I've realised that we have overlooked from the previous game. Now, the fact is, I know that it's very heavily covered in the stats, but I will have to give a cursory mention to the sheer number of sacks in the first half of the Bengals-Titans game. I believe it is fully covered in the stats, so we can kind of... But yeah, something that was definitely worth a mention. Yeah. I think we'll cover it. Probably cover it a little bit more when we talk about this week's games. I have no surprises, strong opinions about the upcoming games, and I've covered a quarter of that through the fact that I'm annoyed that a quarter of the teams that are going into the last set of games is the 49ers. They're not the only team I'm annoyed about. So, at this point in time, who's winning the week?
So,
or is it a tie?
So, as discussed, we all
went for the Packers.
The Green Bay Packers in this one. So, sadly for Mr. Matthew Moore, he is 0 for 2 at this particular juncture. Myself, yourself, and Stu had all backed the Bengals in the early game.
Right.
So we're at least on the board with a 1-pointer. So we then moved to the Sunday offering, of which I was unable to watch the first game at the time, as I was preoccupied with a live show that I was at in Salford. So I was just getting little bits and pieces from looking at the app, seeing texts from friends and whatnot. But we did have the Los Angeles Rams travelling to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. This is a bit of a strange one because the Rams sort of jumped out to what seemed at the time a bit of an unassailable lead. I think it was 27-6 at the half. And obviously that started people saying, wonder if Mr. Brady's been in a position like this before in the postseason.
Well,
where he's down by multiple scores.
I mean, the commentary alone was like, oh, he's never been in this situation before. It's not like he's come back from something like this before. Oh, I wonder if he's going to go into the locker room and tell a particular story. It's like, yes, we get it. Brady's come back from big deficits before. Let's focus and move on. Spin on, because we know how this goes. And go it did.
It was your stereotypical game of two halves, really, because obviously the Bucs were woeful in the first two quarters and then played like men possessed in the second. Probably not even the second two quarters. The fourth quarter alone was basically where they did most of the damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, they managed to. So they went in at half time 27-6, and then managed to score enough points to get them back to 27 points each, with 40 seconds left on the play clock. About that, Matthew Stafford takes over with no timeouts. Almost fumbles the ball on the first play of the drive, but manages to recover it. Then hits Cooper Kupp in midfield. Then hits Cooper Kupp in midfield, in the middle of the field again, getting him down to about the 20-yard line. Manages to get everyone to hustle up to the line, spikes the ball, 3 seconds to go. Matt Gay, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, comes on and drills the winning field goal as the time expires, which actually was the third game of the weekend with a walk-off field goal winner.
Correct.
So yeah, the Rams with the, I suppose you'd argue, third upset of the week. So far, we've not had a single home team progressing in the playoffs.
Nope.
So the Rams, 30-27, progress to the next round.
So, you and I had a short text conversation about this game where I went. Now, again, in hindsight, fired off that text a little too soon. Should have waited for the end of the game before going, look, where 27-27, and I'm like, we're going to overtime here because, say what you want, I don't think the Rams can use that 40 seconds to sort it out. Something we do need to discuss is the play that got them level. There was this whole, they're going to go quarterback sneak because they just needed to get across the line. And it was like 4th and inches or something, 4th and like a foot or something. Like, they're going to go quarterback sneak. And I'm sat there, the Rams lined everybody up in front. There was nothing. There was just this wall. And I'm like, Tom Brady does not do quarterback sneak. And it's Tom Brady. So if you're expecting him to do it, he's going to do something else. So the moment that ball got snapped and he just turned and flung it down the line, I was sat and I physically went, you fucking idiots. Because I was like, why would you not edge your bets on that one? And yeah, Leonard Fournette taking the ball and just prancing it in to level that game up. And then the Rams did what I personally didn't want to see them do. Obviously, destroyed 50% of my Super Bowl prediction that I predicted since before the season started. There was that. I can't argue with the fact that the Bucs didn't look great through the majority of that game. They were very much in the could not get it going. But it's always that you've got to remember who's steering the ship, and if there's one man that can bring it back, as he rightly did, he brought it back to level. It's that thing, and again, we will cover this when we go into the predictions. The Rams are a great team because they, at this point in time, have an amazing defense. Aaron Donald, Von Miller. Oh, it is sweet. Great head coach. Proven from the get-go. Great head coach. We might maybe want to leave that there. I'm not going to lie, after everything I've ever said about Tom Brady, after everything I've ever said over all of the years, I was glued. I was the opposite of you. I was absolutely glued, edge of the seat to that game. And like I say, it made me physically shout out loud when they ran that touchdown in to level it, and I was genuinely gutted to see my 50% of my Super Bowl pick go out. But for a lot of other reasons, again, we will cover it going forward. So yes, congratulations to the Rams, who move forward to the last post-season game before the Super Bowl. Commiserations. Obviously, the thing that is more annoying than anything is the moment the Bucs lost that game, the sport press started churning. It's absolutely Tom Brady's final game. It's his last season. It's going to depend on it. It's more dependent on his family than anything. It's like, can we just not? The man said he's going to play until he's 45. He isn't 45 yet. Just use that information and take it from there.
Yeah, I sort of get that. The one thing that seems to have come up quite a lot in the press, or certainly in some of the podcasts I've been listening to, was that he didn't look his usual sort of calm and composed self when he was on the pitch and stuff like that. One thing, again, I don't know if it's going to be covered in the stats, but was there anything? Is there any sort of stat about penalties for Mr. Brady, or?
I can't tell you. There is a lot of stuff about Brady, as you would imagine, in the stats. Obviously, there is the... Was that Von Miller, or was it somebody else that hit him in the face?
So Von Miller got up in his face and rushed the passer as you do, and obviously then got to him as he was getting rid of the ball, and then pushed him as you would if you look at him make the tackle. So obviously Brady goes to the refs and is like, "What's the deal? What's the deal?" And then won't let it lie when he doesn't see a flag come out, and does see a flag come out, and then is probably horrified to find out that he's drawn an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty against himself.
Get Vince McMahon on the phone, because first time ever in 15 years, he has had a unsportsmanlike penalty against himself.
So yeah, strange times. So
he was seen to be pointing at his injury and saying, "Look at the blood," because he was bleeding. But I think I turned to the stats mistress and I was like, "So if they win, here's the headline for tomorrow: Never make Tom Brady bleed." Pretty sure I saw a tweet that had that on. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was Julian Edelman. And now, while you let us know what happened, I'm going to find that tweet.
So, from a predictions point of view, this was a 50-50 split game. We had 2 people in on the Rams, 2 people in on the Bucks. It's at this point that Matt Moore is praying that he's one of the 2 people that was in on the Rams. Otherwise, he's 0 for 3. He was one of the people who was in on the Rams. So well done, Matthew, getting your first point of the week. The other person who was backing the Rams was this man right here.
Yep.
So, unfortunately, that does leave Andy and Stu out on Bucks Island. And yeah, sadly, they are incorrect. Yeah. I thought it was the thing from Dodgeball, which is obviously hilarious. So as from the 3 games played so far, that puts myself on 2 points, Andy and Stu on 1 point, and Matt on 1 point. So,
speaking of tweets, before we move on from that game, we've got to give a shout out to Antonio Brown's tweet. Talk about twisting the knife. Antonio Brown.
I haven't seen this, so go on.
Antonio Brown, being the good sportsman that he is. In fact, look right there at the top of the old Twitter feed. There he is, being the good sportsman that he is. Fired off this little beauty at the end of the game.
Wow, so for those who are not watching the podcast, at the top of the tweet it says "I can't," and then it's a picture of him dancing through the end zone whilst removing his shirt, as he did, with a sign that has been superimposed between his hands that just says "Bucks eliminated." Yeah, I will be amazed if he is in the league at any point next season.
I mean, let's not put it past the Jacksonville Jaguars to pick up the phone. But yeah, I think he may be done as an NFL player.
Unfortunately, so for him, anyway. So that leaves us with 1 game left to call. And it was a bit of a doozy, ladies and gentlemen. We had the Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of last season's AFC Championship game. Now, to say this was high scoring would be an understatement. To say this was end-to-end stuff would be an understatement. To say this was potentially the best game ever played in the National Football League, I don't think is too much of a stretch. This was phenomenal. I watched the first half live, and then unfortunately fell asleep as I was knackered. So I had to catch up the following day to see the remaining half that I didn't see, and just absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
Even if you can't watch the whole thing, just try and find the action from the 2-minute warning onwards.
Yeah.
And that in its own right is pretty much just like its own game in its own little weird 2-minute sphere. Because
I saw I think it was again a tweet, but I saw a thing that said new rules, the Super Bowl has been cancelled this year, and instead it will be a 7-game series between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. And I read it and went, I'm fine with this. I am fine with this. The fact that we can't have that as our Super Bowl is criminal. They should be like, do you know something? This is the best it's going to be, so let's do this.
Well, I think we'd said it on last week's podcast. We were both like, if this was the Super Bowl, I know it's physically impossible for it to be, but if this was the Super Bowl, no one would be disappointed by that.
No.
So, yeah, the last 2 minutes were just absolutely unbelievable. I think the league changed hands 3, if not 4 times. It ended up with the Bills taking the lead with 13 seconds left in the game.
So many memes. Many memes.
Just unbelievable. So the 13 seconds left. The Bills then obviously kick off. The ball goes through the end zone, so no time is taken off the clock. The Chiefs have time to run 2 plays, one of which goes to Travis Kelce within field goal range, and it immediately a timeout is called by both Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, which takes the game to stops the clock, gives the Chiefs the chance to kick the game-tying field goal, which goes straight through the uprights. We then go to the toss for overtime. Josh Allen calls incorrectly, which hands the Chiefs the ball, and the Bills' offense never sees the field again.
Another meme that's popped up is a picture of Josh Allen with his helmet up here, with just this dazed look, and the caption was, "But Tails never fails."
He's not wrong, but unfortunately, he was let down, and the Chiefs drove Mahomes to Kelce in the back of the end zone, game-winning walk-off touchdown. So we had, I believe it was 42-36 in favour of the Kansas City Chiefs. Just unbelievable. I remember when I was watching the highlights back, I think on more than one occasion, audibly gasped because I was like, "Oh my God, the Bills are going to do it! Oh my God, the Bills have done it! Oh my God, this is unbelievable!" And then the last 13 seconds happened. It was just like you couldn't have scripted that any better. What was good to see was that obviously as soon as the winning touchdown had been scored, obviously Mahomes went and celebrated with Kelce, and then obviously there was the fireworks going off around the stadium. There's a feed that cuts to obviously everyone coming on the field. Patrick Mahomes basically runs almost the length of the pitch to try and find Josh Allen. And then they have this where they sort of
I'd seen that. There was this. They made this big thing about him leaving the celebration to purposely go and find Josh Allen.
Yeah. He then did the post-match interview with someone on the field where he said that that guy played his ass off. Sorry for my language, because apparently nowadays you can't say ass. America's weird, man. So getting the win and progressing on to the AFC Championship game. For the 4th time in 4 years, it is the Kansas City Chiefs. So,
Get Vince on the phone again, because I believe that is also the first time ever.
Exactly. So, from a predictions perspective, we have 3 people were in on the Chiefs. 1 person was on the Buffalo Bills. Sadly for me, I was that 1 person. So, from a moral perspective, I'll take a point on the proviso that games only last 59 minutes and 47 seconds. From a much more accurate perspective,
Oops.
Andrew, Stu, and Matt all take a point for taking the Chiefs to win, which, annoyingly, for the week, puts myself at 2 out of 4 games correctly predicted, Andrew at 2 out of 4 games predicted, Stuart 2 out of 4 games predicted, Matthew Moore 2 out of 4 games predicted. Now, sadly, because only Andy and Stu had predicted the same result across the board, we only took point differential from those 2 in the event of a tiebreaker. So because there was a tiebreaker across the board, I've had to do the only thing I could do that I deemed was the sensible thing to do, and I've given everybody a third of a point. Because obviously Matt and Stu were playing together as the guest. So
there you go.
For the post-season scores, because I was going to do it 0.25, so I was going to give everyone a quarter of a point. I was like, no, because that'll leave a quarter of a point unaccounted for.
Correct.
So, myself and Andy now have 0.33 points. Guest, out on his own with 1.33 points. Moving in to next week's conference championship games. But before we get there, I believe, as we've attested to already, we may have some delicious, tasty morsels of statage to go through with you, ladies and gentlemen.
I saw behind the curtain today. I saw a little bit how the sausage was made. I did the getting the website and everything bit, and then handed over to the stats mistress to do the magic. Because when those stats come in their raw, unfiltered form, it's like, jeez. So big shout out to the stats mistress, because no matter how much I think I could do it, it's way outside my wheelhouse. Credit also goes to Nate Davis from USA Today. There are a healthy selection of stats here, and the only way to get going is to get going. So, NFL divisional round stats. Number 1 is a monster stat. Has there ever been a quartet of playoff games this good? All 4 featured field goals on the last play of regulation. The final one sending the Kansas City Chiefs and Buffalo Bills to overtime in an instant classic won 42-36 by the 2-time defending AFC champions, the Chiefs. Touchdown on the first possession of overtime will resurface questions about the fairness of the NFL's format, given Buffalo never got to possess the ball in the extra period. The bar has now been set quite high for championship weekend, when the Chiefs will host the Cincinnati Bengals, while San Francisco 49ers visit the Los Angeles Rams for the second time in 3 weeks. Number 2. The Chiefs will become the first team ever to host 4 straight AFC championship games. Number 3. The average margin of victory in the wild card round, 17.2 points. The average margin of victory in the divisional round, 3.8 points. The average margin in the divisional round after 4 quarters, 2.3 points. Number 4, did you know you can surrender 4 touchdown catches to one player but still advance to a conference championship game? The Chiefs knew. Number 5, did you know you can allow 9 sacks but still advance to a championship game? The Bengals knew. Number 6, did you know you don't have to score an offensive touchdown to still advance to the conference championship game? The 49ers knew. Number 7. Did you know you can lose 4 fumbles but still advance to a conference championship game? The Rams knew. I will now hand over to you for less of a did you know scenario.
Yeah, sadly, I can't continue the did you knows,
No.
unfortunately. But I can tell you that these playoffs are the first since the 2009 season that won't feature either Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers in the championship round. That is absolutely ridiculous.
13 years.
The 49ers will play in their 17th conference championship next weekend. That is the most of any franchise since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970. It was in fact covered in the stats. The man with 7 Super Bowl rings, Tom Brady, now owns his first unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, flagged for the infraction Sunday after complaints of ref Sean Hockley about the bloody lip he sustained from Rams offensive linebacker Von Miller. Outside linebacker, sorry, not offensive. The Bengals' Joe Burrow is the first quarterback drafted number 1 overall to reach a championship game by his 2nd season. Yeah, sadly...
Old Smokey Joe.
Sadly, Baker Mayfield can't say the same thing. Next, Burrow hopes to join Kurt Warner, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger and Russell Wilson as second-year quarterbacks to win the Super Bowl. Pretty good company there, certainly is. Let's give a shout out to the Chiefs' Tyreek Hill, who reminded us all that he might remain the most explosive receiver in the league, whether on offense or returning punts.
Just before you go on, I did see a thing about never, ever, ever make Tyreek Hill run a second time. And at the time I was like, yeah, that was because he ran that first one. I was like, it's fine. Ran the second one was just like, yeah, regretting that penalty, weren't you?
One thing that did come up that we sort of picked up on was the fact that as he was scoring his touchdown, he obviously flashed the old peace sign to the guys who was going past him, and that never drew a penalty, which we thought was a bit odd, because if that's not a taunt, I don't know what is, basically. But we finish with, if Sunday was Tom Brady's final NFL appearance, he gave his fans one final thrill with a near-epic comeback against the Rams. His haters also enjoyed some satisfaction that the Bucs couldn't finish it off. Brady deflected questions about his future following the defeat, but the story of the offseason could be monitoring whether he'll make good on his long-stated desire to play until he's 45. Regardless, even if you're not a fan, don't you want to see this man in the arena for one more year? I'm happy if he retires. I'm happy for him to go. Give someone else a chance to, let's get to the Gabbert zone, shall we?
I said to the stats mistress on Sunday, I was like, he's looking old. Like, they showed like a close up and he's got all the grey, like very much like me. He's got all the grey coming in down here and stuff. I was like, he's looking old, and she was like, he's 44. Like, well, yeah, the two things kind of go together, I guess.
Like I said, I think it's telling. Bruce Arians came out and said that he's convinced that he'll be back next season.
I'm convinced he'll be back next season.
If Bruce Arians isn't back next season, I don't think Brady would be. he'd potentially, or if he does come back, he'd potentially look to sort of see if he could be traded elsewhere. But I think it's that thing where if one's back, the other will be back for one more run in and stuff like that. But who knows? Who knows?
So that's the stats. And all that leaves now is to close the book on last week's games. But move forward to this week's games. Not a lot to talk about. It's 2 games. But what are 2 games we have? One, I mean, it's gonna be a juicy game to watch. The young buck going up against the only a little bit further in his career buck. And then there's another game that will also be happening that, let's face it, nobody really cares about.
That's the weirdest thing about them. I'm pretty sure like a year apart in age.
Yeah.
They're about the same age or something like that. Yeah, one of them been in the league like 3 times longer. Yeah. It's weird. So yeah, our AFC and NFC championship games will be contested next Sunday. The first of which is the AFC championship game, which, as we've discussed, takes place between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs.
I am very much looking forward to this. I've been a good cheerleader for the Cincinnati Bengals this season. I've really liked what they've got going on. I think they've got an amazing dynamic. I think I keep saying it. I think Joe Burrows is absolutely what that team needed, and he's proven himself time and time again. He looks good. He plays well. He's building this real sort of rapport with the other players. The him and Jamar Chase thing is just peak performance. They are a great team at this point in time, and they've proven that's why they've made it this far. Kansas City Chiefs, you know, they're very much becoming the hot team, the team that if you know, when we start next season, depending how this season ends, maybe not. When we start next season, how many people in their season-long prediction will be picking the Kansas City Chiefs to be doing that dance again? Because I know one man who will more than likely be doing it. So, I am looking forward to this game.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be alone in that one particularly. So it is the young upstart going against the, at this particular time, not a seasoned pro by any chance, but the slightly more seasoned pro.
He's got
that. Yeah, just got the extra couple of turns of the old pepper grinder.
He's had a hit with a spice weasel. Pow.
Exactly. He's knocked it up another notch.
Yeah.
Indeed, Andrew.
Yeah.
So, even though the Bengals have played very well the last 2 games, they've knocked off the number 1 seed. They beat the Chiefs in Week 17.
They did.
Granted, that was in Cincinnati.
It was.
Even given all those things, we've all backed the Chiefs. I think we're all probably working from a perspective of they've been to the dance before. In these sort of games, that tends to matter for quite a lot. So we've all given the edge to the Chiefs. It is what it is. I think the Chiefs will win. Apparently, the Chiefs are favourite by a touchdown. I think it'll be one of those games where it's probably going to have to be the Bengals are only going to win if they can keep pace with the Chiefs' offense, really. So we'll see.
Saying that they're going to win by a touchdown, I feel is probably a bit of an understatement. No matter how much I've enjoyed the Bengals this season, I think when you put them on the field with the Chiefs, when the Chiefs are staring down the barrel of potentially going to the Super Bowl, with the fact that they're still pulling out the odd trick play here and there. Obviously, we saw Travis Kelce taking a little snap at the weekend. The runs that Tyreek Hill made, it's. I feel that there might be just that bit of difference that sets the Chiefs apart from the Bengals, and is going to put them in the that side of the Super Bowl.
Yep, wouldn't disagree with that. So we move to the NFC Championship game, which will take place in LA, which, as you might be aware, is the site of this year's Super Bowl. So we have the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Los Angeles Rams for a place in said Super Bowl. Now, this is one that's not split opinion as such, but we have got one person who's differed to the rest.
Oh, I wonder who that might be.
Yeah, you might be surprised. So myself, Andy, and Matthew Moore have all picked the Rams to take care of business in their own backyard to progress to. So it never happened for the first 54 years, and now we could get back-to-back years where teams make the Super Bowl in their own stadium.
Yeah,
would be an interesting fact, but we'll wait and see. We'll see what happens. So Stu is the only person who's taken the 49ers. Because I had a feeling that we might have a certain amount of similar picks across the board, I've asked everyone to give me a point total for the two games.
Clever.
So, Andrew has gone over the course of the two games for 75 points to be scored in total. I've got the figures from Stu, but I've realised I don't need him, because if his predictions come in, he will just win the week. Whereas Stu has gone for 61 points to be scored in total. Matt has gone for 82 points across the two games. And I've probably had some sort of head injury because I think it's going to be triple digits. I've gone for 101 points in total.
I nearly went in the hundreds.
Mainly based on the fact that I just think that if the Chiefs hit consecutive, we could be talking 21, 28 something, 35, 30, 42. We could be talking big scores.
Yeah.
49ers Rams could be a bit closer, but I mean, that's another one that all it takes is a couple of picks here and there from Garoppolo or Stafford, and we could be talking big scores there as well. So that is the predictions. Can I now spend
the next 45 minutes talking about the fact that how much I despise the fact that we're getting this game, or not? Cause
what do you mean?
I hate this game so much. I hate everything about it.
Rams 49ers.
Yeah. I don't want this to be a thing. I don't want because here's the reason. Because what could potentially happen is the 49ers, and I'll say this for the second time, the 49ers could shithouse their way into the Super Bowl. Because I mean, I was in awe watching that Rams defense at the weekend. They are legit, and this is where your defense sets you aside from the rest of the pack. Your defense will take you to and win you a Super Bowl. And looking at the four teams that are left, they're worlds apart. That Rams defense is legit. The thing that's annoyed me through this entire season is how Matthew Stafford suddenly become this, like, somebody handed him a halo and went, let's just forget all those years that you were that you were over in Detroit, because they didn't happen apparently. Because you know when he was at the Lions and how shit he was then. It's like, oh, he's gone to the Rams and he's really good now. Now I've said all season, Some players and some teams just don't fit, and when those players move to the right teams, they do fit. And I've got to say, you know, Stafford has looked like a completely different player playing for the Rams. But I think that's down to the coaching. And I know it's, you know, you've got all sides of the ball. You've got the players on the field, you've got the guys on the sideline, you've got the guys in the booth. It's a team, and I do get that. Of the two, obviously I've picked the Rams because there have been points through these playoff games where I've seen a parallel dimension where our Super Bowl, you know, was the Titans versus, and I was like, well, I guess I'll be doing something else that Sunday night. It's the things that make me think about turning it off. And if we walk out of this weekend with a Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl, a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl, I'm going to have to seriously reconsider my choices about whether I'm going to be watching. Because
I mean, like, regardless, obviously, we'll still be tuning in.
Yeah, but
it is that sort of thing where we've seen the 49ers Chiefs in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. There's been a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl, I believe, twice, and both times it's come to the 49ers. I don't think off the top of my head there's ever been a Rams Chiefs Super Bowl. And if you cast your mind back 2 or 3 seasons ago, there was that absolutely ridiculous 51-49 game between those two. That was an utter shootout. Yeah. Granted, Jared Goff was quarterback in the Rams that night, but the majority of the teams are still the same and stuff like that, with a couple of additions or like tweaks here and there. So.
I'm very much in that camp of that needs to be our Super Bowl. That needs to be the Super Bowl. It needs to be the Chiefs versus the Rams, and I'll be tuning in with bells on to watch what I imagine will be very similar to that game. Will be very similar to some of the games that we've seen. You know, that I know it can't happen, but you know, if only that Bills Chiefs game could have been it. You'd take that all day, every day. So I think what it boils down to is when you've spent an entire season looking forward to the big game, the big dance, you then don't want to be like, you want the excitement. You want it to have built from game one where you're like, it's game one. It doesn't really matter who wins. Yeah, you won, but are you still going to be here in the, you know, in 17 weeks' time? You want that build to that crescendo of a Super Bowl, a monstrous Super Bowl. And if that isn't what we're given, it's that, did I waste all this time? So that's where I am. I'll be watching with bated breath. Anything else? Anything that we've maybe not covered from the week? Anything that's going into this weekend we need to talk about?
So
any other business?
There's nothing from a playoff perspective, but something that has just come out in the last couple of hours to obviously massively date when this particular podcast has been recorded.
Yes.
Sean Payton's storied run. This is directly from the NFL mobile app. Sean Payton's storied run with the New Orleans Saints is finished. Payton is stepping down as head coach of the Saints. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reported Tuesday. Payton, 58, leaves the Saints with an overall regular season record of 152-89 and a postseason mark of 9-8, including one Super Bowl victory and the 2006 AP Coach of the Year award in 15 seasons. Rappaport adds that Saints defensive coordinator Dennis Allen is considered a leading candidate to replace Payton. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn is also expected to interview per Rappaport. reported that Payton, who had 3 years remaining on his contract, had not committed to returning to coach New Orleans after an incredibly difficult and challenging season. Saints owner Gail Benson confirmed the uncertainty in New Orleans on Tuesday when she said, "I don't think any of us know what Payton's future with the team is." And it just goes on to basically sort of talk about his time there. What I have seen is that as we speak, there is a live press conference news conference on the go, where he is speaking to reporters in New Orleans. So I imagine that's him basically resigning his post.
If he's got time left on his contract, it makes you wonder whether there are other reasons behind it. It makes you wonder, you never know about things like people's health or things like family situations, or
it could literally just be that thing where he's decided that he's a bit fried, he's a bit burnt out, he just needs a season or two away from the game to recharge his batteries, or maybe it's just the fact that he's just decided he wants a new challenge. He wants another go in a different part of the country. Maybe he thinks he can rebuild something in Jacksonville or in Oakland, not in Oakland, Las Vegas. You never know. Obviously, more stuff it'll become a lot clearer in the next couple of weeks and stuff like that. So watch this space. But yeah, as of what appears to be now, the New Orleans Saints are in the market for a new head coach. Bit of a tumultuous couple of seasons for Saints fans.
Yeah.
First the quarterback goes, and now the head coach goes. It's been a bit of an upheaval over the past 12 months.
Indeed. Well, there you go. That is the NFL podcast done and dusted. Just cast my eyes across to see how long this puppy had run in at, and it's probably one of our longer NFL podcasts, in the sense that we literally had a handful of games to go through. So, swings and roundabouts in it. Thank you to my glamorous co-host with co-most. Thank you to Stu and Matt for sending in predictions. Don't forget, if you want to go up against us with your NFL picks, if you want to let us know what you think your Super Bowl is going to be, or anything like that, you can drop us a line through our social medias, through our email, or you can just shout at the screen. I'm sure we'll hear you. That's it for this one. Next week, Paul might be right, there might not be one next week, because we kind of have to cover. We'll let you know.
We'll play it by ear if needs be. We'll do a little. We'll try our best to put the bat signal out, and we'll try and get some people on, and we can do a Cookie Cast podcast alternative end of season awards or something like that
with trophies. That's it. There we go. Done and dusted. We will maybe see you next week. We'll let you know. Until when we do see you, fingers crossed for a Chiefs Rams Super Bowl. Right, that's it. Tatty bye. Take care. Peace out. There you go. What do you think to that? Another one done. Another week of games gone. Another week to look forward to. Not so many games, but they're going to be juicy. Big thank you to Paul, Stu, Matt, everybody that's sending in predictions. And like I said previously, you can send your predictions to us. Jump to our website, thecookiecast.com. Check out our social media links, or just send us an email. There's a button there and it'll send it straight through to us. Drop us your predictions and you could win the week. That's it for this one. Till next time. It's coming, that last week of the season. I can feel it. Until then, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.